Checkpoints is presented by pharmaceutical company GM Pharma.
First of all, thank you for your time, for the interview. We can start talking about your company, about Block Energy. What can you say about ongoing projects and what are main areas you are working nowadays? And I want to ask you about the investment amount, because as I remember, you have started operating on Georgian market at 2018. So what is the total amount of investment you have done in Georgia?
Well, first and foremost, thank you for attending our operating base out here in Nilo. It's a pleasure to have you here, and thank you for taking the time to discuss the business. We were formally established as an operator in Georgia 2018, and since that time we've been building a range of positions in various different licenses in and around the Tbilisi area. So the company is now holds a working interest in 5 production sharing contracts, with our main focus currently being in the 11F area, which is West Rustavi area. We also have an additional project, which is a material gas project, which I'll elaborate on later in this discussion, in the 11B area, which is the Samguri Patazuli area. So to answer one of your critical questions, and that's what sort of investment have we made in a country to date, I think we're a public company, our accounts are there for everybody to see, but I think the investment to date is in and around the $30 million mark since 2018, and that has accelerated significantly since 2020. In 2020 we made an acquisition from a neighbouring operator at the time, a contracting party, Schlumberger, which is one of the world's largest service companies. They were owners of the Block 11B and Block 9 area, which we now own as Block Energy. We have 100% working interest, and we're the operator of those areas. But since completing that acquisition, fulfilling our post-acquisition implementation plan, building the team, and working up the respective work programs associated with those assets acquired, we've consequently defined a reasonably aggressive appraisal and development program, which again, of course, requires accelerating investment on our part. So I think that answers your question.
Tell us more about amount of extracted oil and gas, because you are operating on Georgian market 6 years. Can you tell us numbers separately, just for oil and for gas also?
Since the mid-late 90s, moving into 2000s production, the industry here has been somewhat, I wouldn't say starved, but it's been somewhat neglected. It requires continuous investment, and without continuous investment, particularly given the geological setting here in Georgia, you will experience a rapid decline in production. There's huge potential here in Georgia, which is one of the reasons Block Energy is here, of course. But what it requires is investment. And it requires, support from the service industry to enable active companies like Block Energy, who are one of the most active operators in country. We've over the past several years, we've been by far the most active driller here, chasing those resources that I've just outlined. But essentially, I think the oil resources here in country are significant. You're beyond a multi-billion barrel potential, which is again significant. The gas potential here is also extremely significant. You're looking at multi-trillion cubic feet potential just throughout our licenses alone, part of which was appraised by the previous asset owner. If you like, slowed the development of the industry down to date is the fact that historically there have been core areas throughout both basins that have been owned and held by separate contracting parties and have somewhat fragmented these larger plays that typically your mid-size and large oil companies would be chasing. So we see a consolidation of licenses happening here in Georgia, which will in essence allow contracting parties to capture the entirety of these significant plays, which can then be promoted and marketed towards larger companies that are interested in chasing these larger plays.
We know like financial numbers of your company about last year, but we want to update this data for 2023. What is like total amount of extracted like gas and oil?
So, from an extractive perspective, we have produced around 500,000 barrels of oil to date. As we've been moving through our acquisition phase, integration phase, etc. But more broadly, the key focus for the company, if you like, the jewel in the crown within the portfolio to date, is absolutely the contingent gas resources that sit across both of our 11B and 11F permits. And I know, state departments have been very vocal on the fact that the discoveries that have been made throughout the permits in which are held by Block Energy are significant. The size of resources are significant, have consequently been defined of strategic interest to the state of Georgia, and are believed to contribute, or could well contribute, to a key state policy, and that's energy security, which has become a very important subject for the region, of course.
We have talked about Georgia's potential, but I want to ask you, what do you think? Does this potential meets your expectations? And what information do you have about supplies in our country?
Yeah, well, essentially, a large part of the country's energy demand is satisfied by hydrocarbons, both oil and gas. And we have been a contributor to domestic requirements or demand since inception. We sell our oil and gas here domestically. We are a contributor to the energy demands here in Georgia. And I think by and large, the majority of energy demands, certainly with regard to hydrocarbon demand, is sourced from external countries. So I think beyond 90% of Georgia's gas requirements come from the east, as do its crude supplies and requirements. So essentially, I think, a successful development plan for Block Energy, and as we've always outlined as part of our overall mission, has been to become, the most prominent, largest energy supplier to Georgia, developing domestic resources to supply domestic demand.
We often talk in our country about energy independence. We talked about the resources we have, about potential we have, but is it enough? What do you think to be not import dependent country, and what should we do in this direction?
Anything else that could be done, it would be building the awareness that Georgia is a fantastic place to invest. The opportunity here is significant, and essentially it comes down to packaging and marketing. So people, individuals, companies, funds, investors are aware of, the standout opportunity relative to the rest of the region that is apparent here in Georgia. And I do believe, and I personally notice it when I'm moving around the world and talking about Georgia to certainly the Western investment community, there is still an educational process required there. It's the understanding of the ease in which you can advance business in Georgia is not quite known.
In your licensed area was found supply of gas. We want to hear from you more about this project, more about ongoing processes, and what are you doing now on this licensed area?
The internal verification process has now been completed. We're running a third-party audit process now with an independent resource and reserve auditor in the UK. When that work completes, which we hope will happen sometime, all things being well, before Christmas, your Christmas, not ours, we go and speak to many businesses like ours, far larger, explain the opportunity with state, of course, and try to entice third parties in to join us on that wonderful journey that will be developing that significant resource.
You have mentioned before that it is like not simply and easy working process on this license area, and you have to like make their horizontal drilling. Can you tell us a period when we can see like real results from this project?
Essentially, drilling will entail drilling a 4,500 to 5,000 metre hole down to what is deemed the lower Eocene. And then we will seek to drill a 1,000 metre horizontal section. So you land vertical and you drill your horizontal section across the reservoir. And that will be, a critical event that will go towards de-risking what is currently the 16 BCM that had previously been defined. The key question there is, when do we start to drill? And that will fall out of the process that we're going to be running early next year. The conventional approach, would be a working process, as you've defined it, an active marketing campaign to other companies around the region, which will run for somewhere between 3 to 6 months.
How successful was this year for Block Energy? And also, I want to ask you about future plans for 2024. What are you planning?
To date, our focus has been on drilling wells, producing more oil, and incrementally building our overall production base. But now I think, given the potential we've got in the gas project, which is our project 3, and what has just been verified internally, it's our responsibility as directors of a public company to obviously, focus on high impact events that provide the best chance of adding significant value for our shareholders and all of our stakeholders, whilst delivering on our mission, and that's, becoming the leading supplier of energy to Georgia. Are we looking at any new projects? More recently, we've established a joint venture with a local Georgian company that is currently the largest acreage owner in Georgia. I think collectively, if you combine our license areas, we make up around 10 to 15% of the entire country under license. We've defined that project with our partners at Georgian Oil and Gas Limited, again, which is a local company here, and a major contributor to the industry, as Project 4. The partnership with Georgian Oil and Gas, also complemented by the corporation, the Oil and Gas Corporation, which is a state department, for the first time since the incorporation of production sharing contracts, at least provides the pathway to unifying a significant area which captures massive potential, which we believe, once unified under a single license with all parties aligned in one strategic goal, would complement bringing in major regional players to developing a significant opportunity. Provisional numbers on our gas project carries a project value of somewhere between $1 to $1.5 billion. Investment in that project is in a ballpark of around, and this is phased over a range of different development programs, of somewhere between $150 to $200 million. So that's the gas project. And Project 4, with our partners of Georgian Oil and Gas, that's a multi-billion barrel opportunity there. Again, project values in excess of $1 billion when combined. And again, overall investment north of $300 to $400 million.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your time and for the interesting interview.
My pleasure. Thank you for the questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The Checkpoints is presented by pharmaceutical company GM Pharma.